Wowu gazed out over the verdant expanse of his homeland, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence as he took in the familiar beauty. The lush canopy of the great forest stretched as far as he could see, broken only by the winding silver ribbons of rivers and the occasional jutting spire of deep purple rock. This was the world as it had always been, as the gods had created it for Wowu's people. With a contented chirp, Wowu turned and ambled back to his village on his 3 sturdy legs. The sounds of daily life greeted him, the rhythmic clacking of stone on stone as the toolmakers shaped new axe heads, the bubbling laughter of younglings splashing in the nearby stream, and the low, melodic chanting of the priests as they prepared for the evening ritual. As he passed by the central fire pit, Wowu nodded respectfully to Elder Kree-cha, who sat cross-legged before a group of wide-eyed younglings. And so Kree-shay was saying, her voice croaking with age, the god of thunder hurled his mighty stone axe across the sky, splitting the clouds and bringing the life-giving rains to our people. Wowu smiled, remembering when he too sat at the elders' feet, learning the ways of their world and the gods who shaped it. Now, as a hunter for the tribe, he understood the importance of those lessons. The magic of the priests brought rain for their crops and kept the forest spirits appeased. The blessings of the gods ensured good hunting and protected them from the dangers that lurked in the deepest parts of the forest. As he reached his family's dwelling, a cozy dome woven from living vines and broad leaves, Wowu paused to run a hand over the smooth stone blade of his axe. It had taken him a full turning of the moons to chip and grind the tool to perfection. Some in the tribe whispered of a magical orange stone that could be molded like clay but hardened stronger than rock. Wowu had even seen a spear tip made of this wondrous material, traded from a far-off tribe. But such marvels were rare, and for now, stone served their needs as it always had. That evening, as the twin moons rose over the misty treetops, Wowu joined his tribe around the central fire. The priests danced and chanted, their bodies painted with shimmering pigments made from crushed flowers and berries. Sparks rose into the night sky, and Wowu imagined they were carrying the prayers of his people to the gods above. As the ceremony reached its climax, a sudden hush fell over the gathering. A streak of light blazed across the star-filled sky, brighter than anything Wowu had ever seen. The priests fell to their knees, crying out in awe and fear. A sign Elder Kree-cha's voice rang out. "The gods have heard our prayers and send us a message." Murmurs of excitement and trepidation rippled through the crowd. Wowu felt a shiver run down his spine, his tendrils quivering with a mixture of fear and anticipation. Something momentous was about to happen. He could feel it in the very air around him. Little did Wowu know that this sign from the heavens would herald the arrival of beings that would reshape his world and challenge everything he thought he knew about gods and magic. The age of innocence for Wowu and his people was coming to an end, and a new era was about to dawn, one that would be marked by wonders beyond imagination and terrors beyond comprehension. Days passed since the night of the celestial omen, and life in Wowu's village had returned to its normal rhythm. Yet an undercurrent of anticipation thrummed through the community. Eyes frequently turned skyward, searching for another sign. It came on a misty morning, as Wowu led a hunting party to the edges of their territory. A low rumble shook the air, growing louder until the trees themselves seemed to tremble. The hunters dropped to the ground, pressing their bodies against the moss-covered earth, as if in supplication to an angry god. Then, through a break in the canopy, Wowu saw it. A massive shape, gleaming like polished stone in the early sunlight, descended from the clouds. It was like nothing he had ever seen, no wings like the great flying beasts, no limbs like any creature he knew. It was a perfect oval, smooth and featureless, save for pulsing lights that flickered along its surface. "By the gods," whispered Clarke, Wowu's hunting partner. "What manner of sky beast is this?" Wowu could only shake his head in wonder. As the object settled in a clearing not far from their position, he made a decision. "We must inform the elders," he said, his voice quavering slightly. "But first we observe." The hunting party crept forward, using all their skill to move silently through the underbrush. As they neared the clearing, they saw the massive object more clearly. It rested on 3 sturdy legs that had extended from its base, towering over the surrounding trees. Suddenly, with a hiss of escaping air, a section of the object's side began to move. The hunters watched, transfixed, as a ramp extended to the ground. And then, from the bright interior, figures emerged. Woowoo's 4 eyes widened in shock. The beings were unlike anything he had ever seen. They walked on 2 legs, their bodies encased in gleaming suits that reflected the sunlight. Their heads were round and smooth, with flat, transparent faces that revealed smaller heads within. One of the beings reached up and did something to its neck. With a click, the outer head lifted away, revealing a face that was both alien and yet disturbingly familiar. 2 eyes, a mouth, a nose arranged in a configuration that was almost, but not quite, like Woowoo's own people. The being spoke, its voice carrying clearly across the clearing. The words were unintelligible, but the tone was calm, almost friendly. More of the beings emerged from the sky vessel, some carrying strange devices that they pointed at the ground and surrounding trees. "Are they gods?" Clarke whispered, her voice filled with awe. Woowoo didn't answer. His mind was reeling, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. These beings, with their impossible vessel and strange appearance, defied everything he thought he knew about the world. One of the beings turned suddenly, looking directly at the spot where Woowoo and his hunters were hidden. It raised a hand in what seemed to be a greeting, then spoke again in its incomprehensible language. Woowoo knew this was a moment of choice. He could retreat, report to the elders, and let them decide how to proceed. Or he could step forward, be the first of his people to make contact with these visitors from the stars. Heart pounding, tendrils quivering with a mixture of fear and excitement, Woowoo stood. He handed his stone axe to Clarke and stepped out of the undergrowth, into full view of the beings. As he walked slowly towards them, hands raised to show he carried no weapons, Woowoo realized that everything was about to change. Whether these beings were gods, spirits, or something else entirely, their arrival marked the beginning of a new era for his people. The being who had spotted them smiled, an expression Woowoo found surprisingly easy to read, and stepped forward to meet him. 2 worlds, 2 species were about to collide, and Woowoo was to be the bridge between them. The village was in an uproar. Woowoo stood before the council of elders, recounting his encounter with the sky beings for what felt like the 100th time. The humans, as they called themselves, had followed Woowoo and his hunting party back to the village, their massive vessel hovering silently above the treetops. "And you say they wish to speak with us?" Elder Clarke asked, her voice trembling with a mixture of fear and excitement. Woowoo nodded. "Yes, honored elder. They have a device, a small box that speaks our language. They call it a translator, it is. Like magic." The elders murmured among themselves, some in awe, others in suspicion. Finally, Clarke raised her hand for silence. "Bring them before us," she commanded. Moments later, 3 humans entered the council circle. They had removed their protective suits, revealing skin in various shades of pink and brown. The one in the center, a tall female with hair the color of tree bark, stepped forward and bowed deeply. "Greetings, people of this beautiful world," he said, his words flowing from the small device at his waist. "I am Captain Mike Smith of the Earth Exploration and Trade Commission. We come in peace and with an offer of friendship." The elders listened intently as Captain Smith explained their mission. The humans, it seemed, were explorers and traders from a distant star. They had traveled across the vast emptiness between worlds, seeking new civilizations and resources. "Your world is rich in minerals and energy sources that are very valuable to us," Smith said. "We propose a trade allow us to establish mining operations in specific areas, and in return we will share our knowledge and technology with your people." To demonstrate their offer, the humans brought forth gifts. Gleaming tools of metal that never dulled, fabric lighter than a feather yet stronger than hide, and small glowing crystals that produced light without fire. But it was the final gift that truly captured the tribe's imagination. Captain Smith held up a small, silvery disc. With a flick of his wrist, it expanded into a shimmering screen filled with moving images. The villagers gasped as they saw visions of great cities, flying machines, and wonders beyond their wildest dreams. "This is what our partnership could bring," Smith said. "We can help you build, grow, and reach for the stars yourselves. All we ask is the right to mine in areas that will not disturb your settlements." The Council of Elders deliberated long into the night. Wu, as the first to make contact, was invited to participate. Some elders argued for caution, fearing the unknown intentions of these sky beings. Others saw the humans as gods, bringing divine gifts and knowledge. In the end, it was Elder Clarke who swayed the council. "Our legends speak of a time when the gods will return to guide us," she said, her eyes shining. "Perhaps this is that time. We must embrace this opportunity." As the twin moons reached their zenith, the decision was made. The tribe would accept the humans' offer. A great cheer went up from the gathered villagers, who had been anxiously awaiting the council's decision. Captain Smith smiled warmly as he shook hands with Elder Clarke, sealing the agreement in the human fashion. "This is the beginning of a beautiful friendship," he said. "Together we will forge a bright future for both our peoples." Wu watched the scene with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. The humans' gifts and promises were indeed wondrous, but as he looked at their strange faces and remembered their incredible vessel, he couldn't help but wonder what other marvels or terrors might these beings from the stars bring to his world. As the celebrations began, with humans and villagers cautiously beginning to mingle, Wu made a silent vow. He would learn all he could from these sky beings to ensure his people could stand as equals in this new era that was dawning. The old ways were changing, and Wu was determined to help his tribe navigate the path ahead, wherever it might lead. As the seasons changed, Wu's world transformed. The human mining operation grew steadily, with strange machines carving into the earth at the edge of the tribe's territory. But true to their word, the humans shared their knowledge and technology freely. Wu found himself at the center of this cultural exchange. His curiosity and quick mind made him an ideal liaison between his people and the newcomers. He spent his days learning from the humans, marveling at each new discovery. "This is called electricity," explained Dr. Daisy Patel, the lead scientist of the human expedition. She held up a small device, and with a click, it produced a beam of light brighter than any torch. "It's a form of energy that powers most of our technology." Wu's tendrils quivered with excitement as he took the device. "It's like capturing lightning," he said in awe. "Is this the source of your power?" Dr. Patel smiled. "One of them, yes, but there's so much more to show you." Day by day, Wu's understanding of the universe expanded. He learned of vast galaxies beyond their own, of planets circling distant stars, and of the intricate dance of atoms that made up all matter. The humans called this knowledge science, and to Wu, it was a form of magic more powerful than any tribal ritual. But it wasn't just Wu who was learning. The humans were fascinated by the tribe's deep connection to their world, their intricate knowledge of the forest's rhythms, and their unique biology. "Your ability to perceive ultraviolet light is remarkable," Dr. Patel told Wu one day as she examined his 4 eyes. "And the way your tendrils can detect minute changes in air pressure, it's evolutionary brilliance." As Wu absorbed human knowledge, he also shared his people's wisdom. He taught the humans about the medicinal properties of forest plants, the signs that predicted weather changes, and the intricate social structures that governed tribal life. Some members of the tribe were hesitant, clinging to the old ways and viewing the human influence with suspicion. But many, especially the younger generation, embraced the changes with enthusiasm. Wu's own family was transformed. His life mate, Clarke, became adept at using human medical tools, combining them with traditional healing practices to become a respected healer among both humans and her own people. Their offspring were among the first to learn reading and writing, scribbling human letters alongside traditional tribal symbols. Yet, as the cultural exchange deepened, Wu couldn't shake a growing sense of unease. The mining operation was expanding faster than expected, and he noticed the humans becoming more guarded about certain aspects of their technology. One day, as Wu was helping to set up a new communication array, he overheard a conversation between 2 human technicians. "Did you hear? They found a major deposit in Sector 7," one said in a low voice. "Yeah, but isn't that dangerously close to the Eastern Tribe's territory?" the other replied. "Command says not to worry about it. If there's any trouble, we have ways of dealing with it." The technicians noticed Wowu and quickly changed the subject, but the seed of worry had been planted in his mind. That evening, as Wowu watched the sun set behind the gleaming spires of the human base, he felt torn. The humans had brought so much wonder and progress to his people. Yet he couldn't shake the feeling that beneath the surface of this cultural exchange, currents were moving that he didn't fully understand. As the first stars appeared in the deepening twilight, Wowu made a decision. He would continue to learn, to bridge the gap between his people and the humans. But he would also watch closely, ready to protect his tribe if the need arose. The Great Forest had always been home to many tribes, each with its own territory and traditions. For generations, an uneasy peace had reigned, with occasional skirmishes but no outright warfare. The arrival of the humans, however, upset this delicate balance. Wowu stood at the edge of his tribe's territory, gazing across the river that marked the border with the Jantiki, their closest neighbors. In the distance, he could see the smoke rising from their villages, more than he remembered from before. "They grow stronger," said Clarke, who had come to stand beside him. Once his hunting partner, she was now the tribe's chief warrior, a position that had gained new importance in recent times. Wowu nodded grimly. "The humans have been trading with them too, but not like with us. The Jantiki don't allow the humans into their territory." Instead, the rival tribe had been sending envoys to the human settlements, returning with tools and weapons, but without the deeper exchange of knowledge that Wowu's people enjoyed. The Jantiki were using human technology to expand their hunting grounds and strengthen their defenses, all while maintaining their distance from the sky beings. As the days passed, reports came in of Jantiki war parties venturing closer to Wowu's tribal lands. They seemed especially interested in the areas where the humans were mining, their scouts spotted near the ever-expanding dig sites. Wowu brought his concerns to Captain Smith, who had become a friend over the months of cultural exchange. "I fear the Jantiki may be planning something," Wowu explained. "They've never been so bold before." Smith's face grew serious. "We've noticed their increased activity as well. Rest assured, we're taking precautions to protect our operations and your people." But Wowu couldn't shake his unease. He remembered the conversation he'd overheard about the rich deposits near Jantiki territory. Were the humans pushing too far, too fast? His fears were realized one fateful morning. Wowu was awakened by the sound of alarm calls echoing through the village. He rushed out to find chaos. Warriors were mobilizing, families were gathering their young, and a thick plume of smoke rose from the direction of the human mining camp. "The Jantiki have attacked," Clarke shouted as she ran past, gathering her warriors. "They've hit the human miners and are pushing into our hunting grounds." Wowu's hearts raced. This was more than a simple border skirmish. This was war. He raced to the human command center, finding it a flurry of activity. Screens displayed maps of the area, with red dots indicating multiple Jantiki war parties. Captain Smith's face was grim as he coordinated with his security teams. "They hit us hard and fast," he told Wowu. "We've lost contact with several mining outposts." "We must stop them," Wowu said, his voice firm. "My warriors are mobilizing, if we combine our forces." Smith shook his head. "No, get your people to safety. We'll handle this." But two. "That's an order," Wowu Smith said, his tone brooking no argument. "Protect your tribe. We'll deal with the Jantiki." Reluctantly, Wowu left to help organize his people's defense. As he worked to secure the village, his mind raced. The humans had always been careful not to show the full extent of their military capabilities. Now, facing a direct threat, what would they do? As the sun reached its zenith, the sounds of battle could be heard in the distance. Wowu's warriors had engaged Jantiki scouts at the edge of their territory, while the main force of the rival tribe clashed with the human defenders. Then, suddenly, an eerie silence fell over the forest. Wowu felt a chill run down his spine. Something was coming, something that would change everything. In the distance, a flash brighter than the sun lit up the sky. A roar like 1,000 thunderclaps shook the earth, and then, rising above the treetops, a massive cloud in the shape of a giant mushroom bloomed against the sky. Wu stared in awe and terror. The humans had unleashed their true power. The age of innocence was over, and a new era had begun, one that would be forever marked by the giant mushroom in the sky. The world had changed in an instant. The mushroom cloud loomed over the forest, a terrifying and awe-inspiring sight that seared itself into Wu's memory. As the initial shock wore off, chaos erupted in the village. Some fled into the deepest parts of the forest, while others fell to their knees in prayer, believing the end times had come. Wu stood transfixed, his 4 eyes wide with disbelief. He had learned of the humans' powerful weapons, but nothing could have prepared him for this. The ground trembled beneath his feet, and a hot wind carried the acrid smell of destruction. Wu Clarke's voice snapped him out of his daze. "We need to gather the tribe, the humans. They've unleashed the wrath of the gods." But Wu knew better. This was no act of ancient deities. This was human technology, a power beyond anything his people had ever imagined. As the mushroom cloud began to dissipate, leaving a hazy pall over the forest, human vehicles arrived at the village. Captain Smith stepped out, his face ashen but resolute. "Wu, we need to talk," he said, his voice heavy with the weight of what had transpired. In the hastily convened meeting with the tribal elders, Smith explained what had happened. The weapon, something called a tactical nuclear device, had been deployed against the main force of the Tiki army. The rival tribe had been all but annihilated in a single strike. "We had no choice," Smith said, his eyes pleading for understanding. "They were going to overrun our positions and threaten your people. We couldn't allow that to happen." Elder Clarke, her voice quavering, spoke for many when she asked, "Are you truly gods, then, wielders of the sky fire?" Smith shook his head. "No, not gods. We're just more technologically advanced, but we're still people, like you." But Wu could see the fear and awe in the eyes of his tribe members. To them, the line between advanced technology and divine power had blurred beyond recognition. As the day wore on, reports trickled in. The Tiki threat had indeed been neutralized, but at a terrible cost. A vast swath of forest had been vaporized, and radioactive fallout threatened to contaminate a much larger area. The humans moved quickly, bringing in specialized equipment to contain the damage and treat the injured. They spoke of decontamination and radiation sickness concepts that Wu struggled to explain to his people. That night, as an eerie quiet settled over the forest, Wu sat with Captain Smith at the edge of the village. "I never wanted this," Smith said softly, staring into the distance where a faint glow still marked the site of the explosion. "We're supposed to be explorers, traders, not destroyers of worlds." Wu felt a complex mix of emotions: gratitude for the protection, horror at the destruction, and a deep uncertainty about the future. "What happens now?" he asked. Smith turned to him, his eyes reflecting the starlight. "We'll help you rebuild, make things safe, and we'll offer our protection to prevent anything like this from happening again." As if on cue, more human ships appeared in the sky, larger than any Wu had seen before. They took up positions around the territory, silent sentinels promising security and inspiring both comfort and unease. In the days that followed, Wu watched as his tribe grappled with their new reality. Many now viewed the humans with a mixture of fear and reverence, offering prayers to the sky gods who wielded the power of the mushroom cloud. Others, particularly among the younger generation, were eager to learn more about the technology that could unleash such devastating power. Wu himself felt torn. The humans had protected his people, yes, but at what cost? And what would this mean for their future? As he looked up at the stars, now partially obscured by the hulking shapes of human warships, Wu couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of a profound and irreversible change for his world and his people. The age of innocence was over. The gods of the mushroom clouds had arrived. In the cycles that followed the great explosion, Wu watched as his world transformed once again. The humans, once seen as benevolent traders and teachers, had ascended to godhood in the eyes of many. The mushroom cloud had become a symbol of divine power, feared and revered in equal measure. Elder Clarke, her age-worn face now painted with swirling patterns reminiscent of the fateful cloud, led the first of the new rituals. "We gather to honor the sky gods," she intoned, her voice carrying across the gathered tribe. "They who wield the fire of creation and destruction, who protect us with their mighty cloud pillars." Wowu stood at the back of the crowd, his heart heavy. He had tried to explain the reality of human technology, to demystify the nuclear weapon, but few seemed to truly understand. It was easier, perhaps, to believe in new gods than to comprehend the terrifying power that mortals could wield. Captain Smith and his team watched the ceremony from a respectful distance, their faces a mixture of discomfort and resignation. They had tried to discourage this deification, but the cultural shift had taken on a life of its own. "Is this what we've become?" Smith murmured to Wowu. "Gods of destruction." Wowu's tendrils twitched in a gesture of uncertainty. "To my people, there is little difference between sufficiently advanced technology and magic. And what is a god, if not a wielder of incomprehensible power?" As the days passed, the worship of the humans grew more elaborate. Shrines sprang up around the village, decorated with stylized mushroom cloud motifs. Children played games reenacting the Day of Divine Fire. And artists crafted intricate tapestries depicting human ships descending from the heavens. The humans, for their part, redoubled their efforts to educate and uplift Wowu's people. They established schools, teaching science and technology in an attempt to bridge the gap of understanding. Some of the younger tribe members took to these lessons eagerly, their eyes bright with the promise of unlocking the secrets of the universe. Yet with enlightenment came division. A rift began to form in the tribe between those who embraced the new human gods and those who clung to the old ways. Wowu often found himself mediating disputes, trying to find a balance between tradition and progress. One evening, as Wowu sat with his family, his youngest offspring looked up at him with wide, curious eyes. "Father," she chirped, "if the sky people are gods, why do they bleed when they are hurt? I saw one cut his hand today." Wowu felt a surge of pride at his child's perceptiveness. "A wise question, little one. Perhaps it's time you join me in my studies with Dr. Patel. There is much to learn about our friends from the stars." But even as Wowu worked to spread understanding, he could not ignore the changes the human's presence had wrought. The great forest, once teeming with life, had grown quieter. Many animals had fled the noise and disturbance of the mining operations and the lingering effects of the nuclear strike. The very air seemed different, carrying new scents and particles that tickled Wowu's sensitive tendrils. The humans spoke of progress, of elevating Wowu's people to the stars. They offered protection, their great ships a constant presence in the sky. But at what cost? The old gods of the forest, of river and stone, seemed to have fallen silent in the face of these new deities of steel and fusion fire. As Wowu stood on the hill overlooking the sprawling human base, watching the sun set behind the ever-growing structures, he felt the weight of his people's future on his shoulders. They were caught between worlds now, the old and the new, the earthbound and the stellar. The humans were reshaping his world with every passing day, their power both a blessing and a burden. As the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, Wowu made a silent vow. He would learn all he could from these gods, not to worship them, but to understand them. For in understanding, he hoped, his people might find a way to stand as equals among the stars. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I hope you loved it. Please remember to subscribe if you did like it so you can see more videos like this. And please give us a like and a comment too. I'll see you in the next one.